Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of the P&B Sports Show. I'm your host, Abel Sunday. The FIFA World Cup knockout stage has delivered another thrilling chapter. Brazil showed their championship quality with a hard-fought 2-1 victory over Japan to book their place in the round of 16. Meanwhile, Germany and Paraguay could not be separated after 120 minutes, but it was Paraguay who held their nerves to triumph into the penalty shootout, sending the four-time World Cup champions crashing out. Joining me virtually is the sport Berlusconi, Arakotom, as together we'll break down the defining moments, the biggest talking points, and the controversies from this blockbusters World Cup encounter. Grab your teacup because P&B Sports start now. 104 matches, countless moments of drama, passion, and glory. Join Abel Sunday and the P&B TV Sports team as we bring you exclusive preview, expert analysis, match review, breaking stories, and everything you need to know from the FIFA World Cup 2026. Who will rise? Who will fall? Which nation will lift football's most coveted trophy? From the group stage battle to the grand finale, P&B TV is your home for the road to World Cup glory. Don't miss a moment of the action. Tune in daily from June 11, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. through July 19th with comprehensive World Cup coverage. FIFA World Cup 2026 on P&B TV. One word, one game, one champion. P&B TV bringing the beautiful game closer to you. For sponsorship, contact Abel Sunday on 081 499 15988. Reaching live from the nation's capital, and I've been joined all the way from Port Harcourt, the sport Berlusconi Arakotom. Arakot, good morning. How are you doing this? I think they called it the oil city, but unfortunately I've not seen any oil so far since you've been to Port Harcourt.
Good morning, Abel. You're going to get your oil very soon. Do you need palm oil, red oil? Which one do you need?
I need crude oil, please. Crude.
You have to go to the LMPCL to get crude oil.
But you are there, and that's where they not be there that they get the oil from. Make I don't speak pidgin because me know see the thing is serious.
You are in the oil city, like the capital city. The capital city is the center of everything, the center that controls every city in Nigeria.
But if you not release the oil, how can we get it now? It's still in your own powers to give us the oil or not. So you are still in charge.
Are we here to talk about oil, or are we here to talk sports?
You know, first and foremost, I have to put my personal interest first before we continue with sports. All right, let's dive into the conversation. Tom, we've seen so far the FIFA World Cup. I think it's living up to expectation. Every day we are seeing surprises. We see different blockbusters game. Yesterday was not even a different, because we've seen a lot. We've seen the underdogs doing look at what Cape Verde even did to Spain, and we've seen a lot of that. But again, Brazil came back smoky yesterday, and if you look at the last friendlies, which was I think 15th of October 2025, that was the last time Brazil played Japan on a friendly game, and Japan won that game 3-2. And we're saying that, okay, due to that record, Japan might do it over, or might get something over the Brazilians. But unfortunately, I think Ancelotti was smarter. But the question I want to start with is, did Carlo Ancelotti genuinely out-tactics Japan in the second half, or did a tired Japanese mistake simply gifted Gabriel Martinelli the winner?
I think whenever the major thing is whoever wins the match, is the tactical genius. I'm going to be a lazy analyst, to just see it as a gift. In football at this level, this is the highest level. And I think it's about creating the conditions, that force an opponent to probably, once in a while to collapse, And I think it was a tactical masterclass. I think it was a structural one. You saw the difference in the first half, the overload by Carlo Ancelotti that he had to use in the second half. Let's take, for example, I think in the first half, I think what we saw was probably a 4-5-1. We saw a mid block and a low block transition, probably from the Japanese side, we could see they were disciplined defensively and all that. But when you look at what Ancelotti did, in the second half, he transferred his shape, and it was kind of fluid for the players. The players were more aggressive because he chose an aggressive, line. It was I think it was a 4-2-4 that he had to use moving forward. And he instructed the players like Bruno Guimaraes, to push deep into the half spaces. And it's fantastic to see football at that level. When you can see that probably maybe the full backs, you are overlapping the full backs in their positions. And I think what we saw was that by the 90th minute, Japan had over maybe about how many defensive runs? About maybe 100 plus, maybe 115 defensive runs moving forward. And so to me, that's beautiful football. Carlo Ancelotti is someone that has proven himself in the La Liga. He has proven himself in different spaces. And now he has come to the Brazilian national team to say, you know what? I have players like Vinicius Junior, I have Gabriel Martinelli, I have Bruno Guimaraes, I have Neymar, and this is the right time to see how we can win it. Brazil is a country that have won it severally, and I think that this is the best time. But if they want to make a difference, they have to work on their defensive transitions.
They actually need to work on their defensive transition, because the way they are playing it, they did not up their game, leaving it this late before they could get something out of it. It might be a very problem, story that touch you, and that's how we should see it then. Yes, nice, the story that touch. Yes, but looking at Kashun Sano sliced right through Brazil core for the opening goal. Is Brazil midfield structure too vulnerable to win the entire tournament? Because we are looking at the pair of Casemiro. We talked about Casemiro, how good he is. You look at even his record with Manchester United this season that just ended. It was fantastic. But coming into the World Cup, do you think he's living up to expectation? And do you see that midfield that is a midfield that can stand the test of time when the game became very, very hot, or when the kitchen is getting very hot?
I think, like I said earlier, what we saw was, I'm going to say two things I said earlier. We saw a 4-2-4, formation in the second half, which left the midfield kind of weak. But it was a risk that the Brazilian side were willing to take. And I believe it was just because of the team that they played. Probably it was because they played Japan. But if it is not because of the team that they played, I believe that if Brazil doesn't fix probably their rest defense structure immediately, they will not lift this trophy this year. And I think they are one of the favorites to lift this trophy this year. What we saw from Kaishu Sano, it just exposed probably a structural flaw, that when you meet maybe bigger teams, probably teams like France or Argentina that know how to push relentlessly, when they meet the Brazilian side, if the Brazilian midfield is not strong, especially with the type of defense that they met, the Brazilian defense as well, because the midfield had to, they had to push up a little bit and play a little bit higher. So we saw situations whereby you will see two attackers on one defender, which was a very, very big issue. And what we saw was the Brazilian side, they decided, okay, let's see how we can have a counter press. And it filled up the pitch severally. And to me, Sanu just found a massive space between the Brazil's midfield line and their back four. And I think that's a big issue. But to win the World Cup, I think Carlo Ancelotti must implement probably an inverted, fullback, to create a stable midfield, to see how we can, how will I put it? He can, there's a way it's called in football. He can mid-pitch box four, anytime he has possession. But if they continue to leave their central corridor this way, they are going to have it difficult against bigger teams.
They will have it difficult against bigger teams, indeed. But Japan held the heavyweight scoreless for nearly an hour. The Samurai just proved the rest of the world with a perfect blueprint to frustrate Brazil. Because if they can hold Brazil for almost an hour, not for them not to score, I think they have what it takes, or somebody might just copy what they've done to frustrate the Brazilians going forward.
Exactly what I said before. If Brazil needs a big team, this will be an issue. What we saw from the Japanese side was, yes, I agree, they provided the blueprint. But for you to provide that blueprint, you must have a very, very physical team. You must have a strong bench to be able to execute that blueprint. And that was the weakness of Japan. Executing it was very difficult for them. It relied on three strict pillars, in my own opinion. We saw a hyper compact mid block, which was disciplined for the first half and probably for like 70-something minutes of the entire match. They kept the distance between their probably defensive and midfield lines, under a few meters, probably 10 or 12 meters. So what we saw was an aggressive double teaming on the big players, the big guns, players like Vinicius Junior. So they had to see how they could push him out wide. Then secondly, what I saw was a flawless box defending. And that flawless box defending was what helped them, where they could trap anybody that was there. The attacker, probably when Vinicius Junior was there, they could trap him. So they had to force him to play wide and see how they could cross the ball. And that is not Brazil's strength. But I think, however, the blueprint also revealed that it had its own, probably it could not last. It had its expiration date, because the Japanese side could only hold the low block against Brazil, for a period of time, because it had a physical toll on them. You could see the Japanese side is a side that are physical and can run, but they could not hold it for the last 15 minutes, and that was where the problem was. And Brazil's squad depth just took over. So to me, I think what helped Brazil was not just a tactical thing. I think it was more of the players that they had. They just had better players. Brazil were just a better side against the Japanese side. And it showed in the final 15 minutes, of that particular match.
Okay, before we move to the next game, we looked at, I asked Amedu yesterday about Vinicius Junior. If you take him off this Brazilian team, how would the Brazilian team look like if you take Vinicius Junior off? And yesterday, I think the Japanese, they did that because they put like 2 or 3 persons on Vinicius. So Vinicius could really not even operate at all. And you saw what happened. So if way forward, if Vinicius Junior can be captured or trapped, what is the fate of the Brazilian? And considering the fact that the certain Rafinha is still not fit to play. So how will Brazil escape such a trap?
We've seen Brazil, we've seen the way they played, and most of the goals come from Vinicius Junior. Vinicius Junior is an elite player. But I think the problem that the Brazilian side have, which they might be able to solve moving forward if they can survive their next 2 matches, is the Rafinha and Neymar issue. They probably have the squad depth to some extent. I think we're just calling big names, but the Brazilian side have players on their bench that to me are better than the starting 11 of some other teams. This is a team that has Casemiro. This is a team that has good players, Gomez. So when you are seeing a team like this, I think what they have to do is they have to find a way to just adjust the formation a little bit. See how they can take away some attention away from Vinicius and probably have double threats so that Vinicius can have opportunities to score, even though the goal is not coming from the other week. So I think that is what the Brazilian side has to do. I think it is not a real problem, but where it will be a real problem is when they meet the bigger teams. And I'm going to mention those bigger teams. Teams like Argentina, teams like France. A lot of people might not like to say this, but teams like Norway as well. So I think it's going to be a big issue.
All right, it's time for us to go on a short break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the Germany versus Paraguay game. Don't go anywhere, right? Welcome back. It's the P&B Sports Show reaching live from the nation's capital. And I'm still very, very much with the Sport Berlusconi, but we're from Port Harcourt, the Oil City they call it. But Tom, we let's quickly, we have just 5 minutes. Let's try and see if we can do justice to the German Paraguay game. Germany had not lost a competitive penalty shootout since 1976. Is this their legacy, how I call it, psychological edge on the world stage officially gone forever? Because actually, if you've not lost a penalty shootout since 1976 to date, of course, anybody going to play penalty or come to penalty shootout for you to be, there's something will be going behind that person's mind. But with this gene broken, can we say officially the psychological edge they have over other teams are gone?
You know, the football of 1976 probably to 2000 to 2015 is not the same football of now. You know, football has a lot of analytics. So I think that the myth of German invisibility from 12 yards, you know, it died last night in Foxenborn. You know, for half a century, we've seen the German teams, they probably possess this aura. Everybody's scared of playing them in penalty shootouts because they have this psychological edge. You know, they always have this aura that just comes with them when it comes to the shootout. And that was the football of probably 10 years ago. But if you look at the past 10 years of football, you know, when you are playing your opponents or when you are preparing for a penalty shootout, you know, you see data analysts going to meet the goalkeeper with the coaches, you know, telling them that these are the possible penalty takers for this particular team. These are the best players. They want them to take penalty because they believe that they can absorb the pressure. And then again, they give them the analysis of where they usually take their penalties from, where they take their penalties from in high pressure situations, where the ball usually goes to. And I think that that is what happened. So when you could see that, the Paraguayan goalkeeper, I think it is Orlando Gil, you know, he didn't guess. He was already equipped with the information, with the algorithm, with the data of what needed to be done. So when you see players like Kai Havertz and Watermadi, when he stepped up, Jill already knew where the ball was going to entirely. So it wasn't. I think that's the good thing about football. Football has evolved. So when you are used to taking penalty shootouts at a particular angle, you should expect that goalkeeper to know it's going there, except the goalkeeper is not quick enough. But any good goalkeeper, and I believe every team brought their best goalkeeper to the World Cup. So any good goalkeeper will know what to do. And I think there's something that we noticed. I mentioned the aura of Germany. They are usually fearless when it comes to penalty shootouts. You can see that they are extremely confident. But I think they looked extremely tired and they also looked anxious. And I was wondering why they were like that. You know, while we saw the Paraguayan side, they were the ones that now decided to be fearless and then an icon class, in my own opinion. So I think this it just signifies a cultural shift, and history is no longer, you know, you win through penalty shootouts.
Well, Eru used to say, game of football is the side that want it most, that always gets the day. But quickly, in 1 minute, as we wrap up, Germany controlled a staggering 78% of the first half ball, but went into the break losing. The German value possession over actual penetration. Quickly.
I think it was sterile domination, in my own opinion. You know, controlling 78% of the ball, you know, it looks beautiful, you know, probably, but it doesn't mean anything if your possession is absolutely useless, if you are not using it to win the match. You know, in the first half, Germany fell into a tactical trap from the Paraguayan side. You know, they kept moving the ball from side to side in front of the Paraguayan midfield, but they could not find that penetration that they needed. And I think that was the issue that they had. You know, failing to make vertical, you know, plays. You know, they were not making line breaking runs as well, and that's an issue. Possession without goals is a problem. So you have to solve that problem. So I think moving forward for the German side, whenever they will be playing the World Cup, you know, or anything, they need to look at this again. You know, they played with too many midfielders who wanted the ball a lot. They were just hawking for the ball, you know, I don't know. I think they had an issue and they just didn't have enough attackers. Instead, they had people that midfielders that just wanted to pass and keep the ball. They're clean to see.
Yeah, in as much as I want us to continue talking about this, unfortunately, time is no longer on our side, and that's all we have for you on today's edition of the P&B Sports Show. Many thanks to my guest, the Sport Berlusconi Arakotom, for this